Hi everyone, welcome back. If you've watched my previous video on what is a percentage, I talk about the basics in just the really simple parts of what we can write. For example, if we see 31%. I'll briefly go over that again. 31% can be written as 31 out of 100. So there it is written as a fraction. And when you write out of 100 with decimals, 2 zeros means you're using 2 decimal places. So the 2 decimal places are, if I had 0.31. So there's the 31 hundredths written that way with the 2 decimal places, which is actually 3/10 and 1/100, so that's still 31 hundredths. So I've got 3 possibilities. I can have it written that way, which is no good for me when I go to my calculator. I can write it that way. Now, the trouble is with the fractions, a lot of people struggle with the fractions and using the fractions on these calculations. If you're good at your math, it won't be a problem. But for those who are struggling with it, and even for the people who are good at it, the best version, the best form to use at the moment is that one. Now, a lot of the times when we're dealing with this topic, we're actually dealing with money. So on the third and the fourth question over here with money, and the problem is if we use fractions to do the question, money is not written in fractions, it's written as decimals. So if I look at this question here, I'm allowed, instead of 31%, I'm just allowed to write 0.31. Now, I know a lot of students still have trouble with math teacher after math teacher will say is times. So I want you to see me being silly, is times. I do like to sidetrack for a moment, and I talk about if someone went down to the shops and they bought 2 kilograms of, let's say, apples at $3 each, $3 per kilogram. So if someone went and bought 2 kilograms of apples at $3 a kilogram, most people won't hesitate and they go, well, that'll be $3 and $3, and they'll say that's going to be $6. So what do we do with the numbers? Now, it's not the math makes this happen, it's normal life makes it happen. When we say we go to 2 kilograms and we multiply by the price. So you can look at it and you can go the 2 times the 3 is $6. So in normal life, means multiplication. And I can talk about that over and over and over again. So if we go back to the question here, I've got an which is a multiply, and I get the 200. Now at that point, you can just pick up your calculator, even if you don't understand the topic, and just go 0.31 times 200. By the way, if you just go 0.31 times 200 on your calculator, it doesn't need the 0. The calculator understands that that 0 is there. But you can type it in if you want to. And that ends up being 62. So we've got no decimals in the answer. We can talk about decimals in other videos. So if we go to this one here again, I could write that as a 57%. If you go back to another video, you'd have 57 boxes coloured in out of 100. So we've got a choice. I could write 57 out of 100 there. No good if I'm using money though. Or I could write that as 0.57. So 2 zeros for a fraction means that those 2 numbers are those 2 numbers there. So that's 57 out of 100, and that means 0.57. So if I wanted to put that in the calculator as 0.57, and if you wanted to, you could type it in as 57 over 100, but not when it's money. And times by 180, if you pop that in your calculator, I've got the answers written in over here. You just go 0.57 multiplied by 180, and you get the answer of 102.6. Now, the big one, this is the one that traps people. This is the one that traps people. And I like to talk about be careful. I'm always talking about be careful, watch out for the silly mistakes. Student after student after student will write that as 0.5 times by 400. And we got a problem. 0.5, a lot of you would realise is 50%. Talking about it here, or just over 50%. So it can't be 0.5, it's much smaller. 5%, if I coloured in the squares and I showed you my coloured squares, or I could show you this one from what I did on a previous video. There's 6 squares coloured in, 6 out of 100, and 6 out of 100, there's a 6 out of 100 is 0.06. So it's got the extra 0 in it because it's out of 100. So if I only had 5 of them there, this would be 0.05. Because I've only got a very small part coloured in. 50%, which is 0.5, would have half of them coloured in. So we only have a few coloured in. So whenever you see a number less than 10, a number less than 10, we've got to go for the little numbers, 0.05. And I've written that down over here. Just type in your calculator 0.05 times that. And the answer is 20. Now, because it was talking in money in this case, I can just leave it as 20. So 2 is even smaller. I have had 2%, 3% pay rises in my life, as I've talked about previously. So that would be 0.02 of in normal life, not because the math means multiply, and that's 85. So what's the trap? Here's where the trap is here. You need this extra 0. And the extra 0 makes that into 2%, otherwise it would be 20%. So you can pick up your calculator. Now here's the interesting part, the calculator will say 1.7. Now by the way, if we did those fractions, it'd be horrible because we'd have some horrible fraction answer. Well, it wouldn't be too bad in that case. So don't forget that money has 2 decimal places. When you look at money written all the time, it doesn't really matter if you wrote it as 1.7. But in a lot of tests, people will take the mark off if you didn't write it as $1.70. So what we're going through is percentage of a quantity. You can see all of these have the of. Of means times, and the percentage you have to write. Best way, I'm going to keep saying and nag about, is the decimal. I hope it helps. If it helps, what's really helpful if you want to support me is just press the like button and then subscribe if you haven't subscribed.